Hello, once again, and welcome to the Chipmunk Family Survival Podcast. I am indeed the one and only Chipmunk. Actually, that's not accurate. I did a search online one time and found there were a couple other people with that moniker. I was relatively surprised because I can't imagine anyone's parents being dopey enough to name them that. In my parents' defense, it was actually a nickname I acquired during my college years. Anyways, that said, welcome. I'm glad you found my little area here on the wonders of the telecommunication potential of the internets. And yes, I do say that somewhat facetiously, but I am going to share with you today about the subject of making bread on your stovetop. Like making bread not in your traditional bread making way, but some different ways that you can, if you don't have an oven, if you have to conserve fuel and you still find the need for breads, especially if you're the kind of person that stocks away a lot of wheat flour or different flours. This is a way, these are proven methods for literally putting bread on your table. These can be done, any of these examples I give you can be made on top of any one little, those little one burner survival stoves or the camping stoves or a little propane stove, anything like that. So let's just jump right in. One of the things I'm trying to do with these little mini episode podcasts is just go straight to the subject so you don't have to listen to me babble on incessantly. Let's start with what I would call skillet baked cornbread. I loved cornbread growing up, and I've mentioned in the past that I have celiac disease, so I can't eat bread the same way that I used to. But my wife is awesome at substituting other materials and other components to make bread for me, and so I do occasionally get to still have bread, which is pretty cool. But I'm going to give these recipes for the average person who does not have a wheat intolerance like I do. This is going to be geared towards kind of the average person and the average family situation. And again, I want you to picture the scenario. You're in a situation, your power's been out for a week, and all you really have to cook with is a little one burner propane stove that you got for camping, and that's what you pulled out of the garage for the situation you find yourself in. And you want to make bread with some of the things you have in your pantry. You have some flour or whatever on hand. This is that kind of situation that would be optimal for using these recipes. So the first one, skillet baked cornbread. I found some of these recipes in an old magazine from a long time ago, and I really liked them. So over the years, I have encountered chances to kind of explore some of these, and some of these were things I grew up with. So it's kind of a mix of different ways I've found them, I guess. But the way you make skillet baked cornbread is it's similar to a recipe I'll give you in a little bit, where you're going to use a heavy aluminum skillet, kind of almost like a stovetop oven. You're going to, if you have things that would work like this, place kind of like a pressure cooker rack and some sort of metal piece or something on the bottom to keep the baking pan from resting directly on the bottom of the hot skillet. You want to preheat the covered skillet for about 10 minutes, and then once you've got that preheated, you're going to place in the cornbread batter or whatever other kind of the kind of batter that you can make quick bread out of. You're going to place that batter into a baking pan and then place it on top of the rack, kind of inside this little stovetop oven that you've made. You'll want to check it within probably 18 to 20 minutes and just kind of check and see and just watch it for it being the consistency of how you like your bread, your cornbread. And that goes really good, I've found, with things like soup and chili. I love to eat chili, but I try not to eat it too much because I don't know, I always kind of react funny to it and get a little bit of a bloated feeling. But I think this goes really good with things like that. And later on, when I give you my super spam chili recipe, I'll kind of try to remember to remind you of this. Other things you can do, these are kind of like the Chinese buns you may have had before, or I've heard the term Boston brown bread. It's kind of like what you get when you get bagels. These usually aren't quite as easy for someone in a survival situation to make because they do take a lot of more time than some of the other things I'm going to share with you today. They take more fuel and they take more water. Um, so they're not quite the kinds of things that this is optimal for. But you could do something similar by taking your favorite dumpling recipe. I love chicken dumplings myself. But whatever, take dumplings, add enough water into that biscuit mix that you're using for the dumplings to make a dough that's a little stiffer than maybe what you're used to. And then you're going to drop it. Use tablespoons and drop it into boiling soup or stew that you're already cooking somewhere. Cook it for about 10 minutes. You don't want to cover this up in this case, but cook it about 10 minutes. If you need to add any extra water to the stew, if the water is kind of boiling out and you don't want to scorch stuff, if you do that, cook it 10 minutes uncovered and then 10 minutes covered, and serve that. That kind of steamed bread is awesome. It tastes really, really good, and it'll give you kind of that carb fix that you might need in a situation where it's kind of a survival thing, and you want to have at least some similar foods that your stomach is used to. Fried breads. When I was a kid and growing up, my mom made this awesome fried bread, and man, I can't have it now because of the fact that I have celiac disease and am gluten intolerant. But my wife sometimes makes a pretty good approximation of what my mom used to make. But basically, the way you make these fried breads is you work up your favorite yeast dough, get up to the final step right before it rises. And I'm not really an expert on this. I kind of more watch my wife do it, but I've seen it and I've done a little bit myself. But when you get to that point, then start to tear off bits of dough, maybe about the size of a large walnut. Let them rise till they're just let them rise a little bit, I guess, and then you want to deep fry them in hot oil in a pot that has plenty of room for them, or a skillet, like I mentioned with the cornbread, and wait until the little breads kind of are float and are brown, and then you can also do the same thing actually with cornmeal and biscuit doughs and things like that. You can quick cook them by deep frying them in the same way, but if you kind of drop them into the frying oil that you're using, in that hot oil, do it in small amounts, because if you get too big of a chunk of dough, when you go to eat it, you're going to notice that it's kind of raw and kind of chewy and gummy inside and doesn't taste very good. Another cool thing you can do with this method is you can make kind of a, I don't know what I would call it, but you kind of roll out a pie crust. You fill it with whatever meats or vegetables you have on hand. You could go out and gather even just wild stuff for this. This would probably even work with cattails or dandelions, things like that, if you're just trying to make them more palatable. And then you take that pie crust, kind of fold it over, then take a fork or something and kind of press on the sides till you sort of seal around the edge, and it makes a little pocket. My son calls these pockets. We haven't done it with these kind of survival foods, so to speak, but he loves pockets like this. And then you deep fry it until it's kind of golden all around, and those taste really good. And you can do it with cheeses and meats that you have on hand in a normal situation too, and they taste really good. But they're kind of a fried, I don't know what to compare them to, almost like a poor man's Monte Cristo sandwich or something. They're very good. Give them a try sometime if you get a chance. I mentioned baking the cornbread in a skillet. Well, you can also do biscuits in a skillet, and this is probably not that unusual for some of us who have a good cooking background with bread. But start with a cold, heavy aluminum skillet. It needs to be cold to start with. Just lightly grease it, and you want the kind that has a kind of a tight-fitting lid. I'm thinking of the kind that have that really big, heavy lid that goes on top really securely. And then you want to work up whatever your favorite bran biscuit recipe is, or oats or wheat, whatever kinds of whatever you like best. And then go ahead and cut out the biscuits, whatever pattern you use, however you do that. Everyone has a different way of doing it, it seems. But cut out the biscuits and then arrange them in the skillet, kind of give a little bit of room between each. And then put that heavy cover on. Bake them for, 5 to 8 minutes. You might need as long as 10 minutes, just depends, until they're kind of brown on the bottom, kind of lightly brown on the bottom. I also do about the same amount of heating when I'm doing hash browns myself, those hash brown kind of squares that you can buy from the store. Then turn them over. turn the biscuits, cover them again.